Yes, Lavanya, please get started.
Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum and good evening, everyone. Welcome to this webinar on how to start your career on strong terms. Let us begin the session by seeking the blessings of Almighty. I request Mr. Rauf Rahman to recite the prayer.
Good afternoon, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد صدق الله العظيم.
Thank you, Rauf Rahman. Welcoming is a kind gesture. To welcome this gathering, I call upon Mr. Safayat.
Assalamu alaikum and good evening, everyone. It gives me a great joy and warmth in welcoming you all to this webinar on how to start your software career in strong terms. First and foremost, I welcome our director, Dr. Revati ma'am, and our head of the department, Dr. Usha ma'am. I am honored to welcome our resource person, Mr. Mohammed Samir, who is a software engineer and technical architect at Robert Bosch Engineering and Business Solutions since 2009. He is an expert in C, C++, and Python. He graduated from MIT's Jawaharlal Nehru Technological University, Anantapur. He is a skilled mentor and a willing learner. We are indeed eagerly awaiting to hear from you, sir. Once again, welcome to this webinar. I extend my hearty welcome to the participants of this webinar. I also welcome the faculty members and the volunteers. Once again, a warm welcome to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Safayat, for the delightful welcome. Software is a great combination between engineering and artistry, said Bill Gates. To enlighten us how to start our career, software career, in strong terms, I request a resource person, Mr. Mohammed Samir, to take over the session.
Perfect. Thank you. Then just a short mic check. I guess everything is fine with my voice and no background noise.
Yes, Samir, you're very clear.
Perfect. Then
Yeah.
let's get started.
Yes, I request all the participants to kindly put on mute. Yes, Samir, please go on.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah. So a warm welcome, nice welcome by different people on the call. Today's session, I would like to take about 1 hour. It's going to be around 1 hour. And I would like to have like 10 to 15 minutes of discussions after that 1 hour with the students, because there will be some questions which will not be addressed maybe by the presentation, because the presentation is very generic. So let's do it that way. So we have about 1 hour, 19 minutes from now. I'll try and keep the presentation for about 1 hour, and we'll use the 10 to 15 minutes at the end to address a few questions. Let me proceed. Okay, so before I get started, I had put down a few rules for the session. The first rule, you don't have to call it a rule. I have just put it some kind of a moments, if I should call it that way. So the first is, you will see on the slides sometimes a few moments where I will ask you to, I'll stop the presentation and I'll ask you to just reflect on whatever we just discussed and ponder upon it a little bit. This is very important, because then you will understand the importance of whatever is being discussed. If it's just going to be a monologue where I'm going to talk about for 1 hour, it's not going to be mutually beneficial. Yeah. So there are a few slides where we'll have pause moments. The second is I would like to have the session as interactive as possible. Yeah. But there's a small anecdote. I would like to keep the Q&A to the end, but that doesn't mean that you don't interact. There are few places in the session where I have added this interaction please comment, wherein I would like to hear from you. Yeah. So this is how it's going to be. I'll just summarize. We have a few pause moments. We also have a few moments where we'll have interaction. And let's keep the Q&A. So which means if you have some questions specifically that you would like to ask and all that, let's keep towards the end. Yeah, I've already explained the structure of the session. Let me go a little bit deeper and tell you the nitty-gritty. So the session is, as I said, it's going to be for 1 hour. I will approach this session in a step-by-step manner. First, I'll talk about the different problems that we have as Indian graduates or postgraduates. Yeah. This is not going to be like a pinpointing or blaming session. This is more to understand what problems that we as Indian graduates share. I'm including myself also in, because I'm also part of the same system, which means that we all have common problems that we will have to solve. Yeah. Then we look at the problems in a transparent way. I want you to acknowledge, I want you to look at those problems in a more transparent way, acknowledge them, and then I'll set the context of how this session is going to be, and then we'll look at the solutions. Perfect. So let's get started. Who am I? As the person already introduced me, I'm Mohammed Samir. I work with Robert Bosch. I'm basically a software engineer. Let me take 1 minute here. So this is the first pause moment that you've already got. I'd like to take a half minute or so just to explain this a little bit. And I would like you to ponder upon this, reflect upon this. Firstly, when I said I'm a software engineer, what do I mean by that? Of course, I play different roles in the company that I work for. I've studied something in my graduation. All that apart, I'm just trying to bring out the fact that I do software development. Yeah. So what am I trying to say here is that this is kind of identity that I'm trying to bring before you, saying that I do software development as my profession, right? And I'm taking kind of pride in it. Yeah. So I'm just trying to bring that part in front of you. I'd like you to take a few seconds for yourself. You don't have to chat, or you don't have to ping, or you don't have to speak. I want you guys also to think for yourself. What is it from a professional point of view that you are proud of? What is it that you as a person would like to be called yourself? If not now, maybe 5 years down the line, or 10 years down the line, or maybe 2 years down the line. Yeah. Time is something which I don't want to talk about. Yeah. I want you to take a few seconds to realize professionally, what is it that you're proud of? Or what is it that you want to be proud of? What is it that you want to be known for? Yeah. Just take a few seconds. Just think for yourself. Reflect upon it. I'm just looking at the timer so that we could. Okay, so we've taken about 10 to 15 seconds for that. Anyone would like to unmute and say what is it that they would like to be proud of? 1 or 2 answers, just 1 or 2 answers.
Sir, I would like to be a software engineer at Google.
Super. So that is Deepavali, if I got your name right.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. That's great. Anyone else who would like to share? No problem. Let's proceed. So I like the answer which Deepa gave. So you'll have to understand that she was a little bit more specific. She said that she wants to be a software engineer at Google. Yeah, there's a little bit of pride coming in. There's also a little bit of specific which is coming in there. She wants to specifically try and join a big company like Google. She wants to work towards that. Yeah, I assume that you know what I am coming to, but let me try and elaborate that a little bit. Yeah. So why did I start with this? It's very important that you know what is your strength, that you know what is it that you want to be. Yeah. You have to be very clear about what you want to be. If you have a general goal that I just want to pass out of a college and want to get into a job, that's not going to give you a satisfaction. That's not going to fuel your passion. Yeah. Some point of time it might change. Some point of time it might become fuzzy. So that's why it is very important to identify yourself. What is it that you would like to be? What is it that you're proud of? Yeah. Where is it that you want to put yourself in? I've added a little bit of details about myself, and this is how I introduce myself as well. I'm an electronics engineer basically, but I do embedded software development day in, day out. I'm mainly interested in programming and system design. I have about 12 years of professional experience. I currently work for Robert Bosch, Bangalore. And I have worked with professionals from across the world. So I've just highlighted a few key areas. Of course, professionals from India, professionals from Vietnam, Japan, Europe, and North America. Why is it that I'm highlighting this? There's a simple reason for it. I just want you to know that there are a few aspects of mine which you will have to be aware of when I'm talking. That adds a little bit of value to whatever I'm trying to say. Okay. So in this slide, I tried to give 2 points to you. There were two key takeaways. One is you will have to be very clear of what is it that you want to be. What are you proud of? What is it that you want to be, let's say, in next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? Yeah. Of course, in your aspiration to become a software engineer. And the second thing is you would have to be very specific. Yeah. If you have a very generic goal, it's very difficult to, kind of measure it. With that, having said, I'll just briefly walk through the agenda. We had a little bit of background. Yeah, I will talk in the background about the problems that we as Indian graduates face. I would like to hear from you as well. There are academia in, so which means that their inputs are very, very valuable. So I'd like to hear that as well. Then I'll set a bit of context, and then I'll talk about the skill network and excellence model that I have developed. At the end, we can have some feedback. Okay, so let's get started. What are the problems that I see? I have divided these problems into 4 broad categories. You could call them 4 pillars. Yeah, let me first start with the first, which is employability on the left side. So let me see if I can change the pointer a little bit so that it's yeah, I think it's better now. Employability. What are these 4 pillars? These pillars, there are a number of problems that we as graduates face, and that doesn't have to be necessarily because of the country, because of the process and all that. These are generally the problems that you will see outside India as well. Yeah, it's maybe in India we have different set of problems, but we are not going to discuss all that. What we are going to discuss today is I've just grouped some of these problems into different pillars. I would like to bring them to your attention. Some of them you already might know. Some of them you might not know, and you would get to know this now. Yeah. So it's completely fine. At the end of it, we will also have some kind of an interaction based on that. The first pillar is employability. From my experience, and also from the experience which is with my colleagues, with the people that I have worked with outside India, with the people that I have interacted with from the research, the employability of a vast majority of Indian graduates is not at a very good level. Okay. Let me rephrase this part. And let me emphasize a few parts of it. The vast majority of Indian graduates, be it postgraduates or be it undergraduates, they lack the employable skills. Yeah, I have highlighted the part skills here. You have to understand this in the context that here the point is not about education, the point is not about knowledge, the point is not about fundamentals, the point is about skills. Yeah, skills are those, we'll talk about skills and their benefit and all that as we go ahead, but the point is that from multiple research things which have happened in the past, there's also an India skills report which gets published every year by a group of people, which is also done along with our AICTE. The more or less the conclusion has been that majority of Indian graduates lack employable skills, which means once you give them an employment or once you want to hire them for employment, most of them will be having that skill gap, and they either have to be trained or they don't qualify for being in that job. Yeah, we'll talk about this a little bit further. The second point in employability, this lack of focus on employable skills. Yeah, what do I mean by that? When you say focus, that means that there are vocational trainings, there are on-the-job trainings, there are internships, yeah, there are distant learning stuff wherein you can sit along with a company and try and drive some things. There are external programs, but there is broadly a lack of focus. Yeah, we'll talk about this as we go along. The second pillar is practical knowledge, something which comes because of the first pillar. A majority of students have a very weak industry connect, and that's also the case from the other side. Majority of companies have a weak academia connect. It is getting improved in the last few years. There have been companies which are reaching out to the academia, and there are academia, there are colleges who are reaching out to industry because they see this as a gap. They see that, yeah, a lot of my students don't know what they have to do once they get employed, and a lot of college, a lot of industry experts think that, okay, when we hire freshers, it's very difficult to get them employed in, let's say, 3 months or 6 months. They'll take at least 1 year to get skilled up. Yeah? This gap is being recognized now, and it's trying to be bridged. But in general, till now, at least, there's been a weak industry connect. Yeah? Second thing, this lack of application. Yeah? What do I mean by application? It's very important that whatever you learn in your education, it has to be applied. It has to be in a state that you can use it to solve problems of the industry. Yeah? Generally, we have seen that Indian graduates have a problem with that. Yeah? Lack of application. Third thing, once again, in the practicality of things, which is keeping up with new technology disruptions. The industry today is moving at a very rapid pace. Yeah, I'll take an example here. 2 years before, if you're sitting at home and you felt hungry, what would have you done? 2 or 3 years before, you would have either asked your someone in your house to cook for you, or you would have visited some friend's house if he was cooking for you. No other option, right? Yeah, there's no other option available. Or you would have gone to a hotel, you would have called the hotel, you'd have checked if there's a space for 2 people. You would have said, yeah, sir, after 30 minutes. Then you would have walked to that place after 30 minutes. You would have waited for the cook to prepare the food, and then you would have been served on your plate. So it would have taken about 1.5 hours. Yeah, think about it in the current context. There are a number of options that can deliver you the food that you like, wherever you are seated, at whatever time that you want it, midnight, 12 o'clock, early morning, 7 o'clock, and whatever cuisine that you need, right at the fingertip, at your fingertips. You could do that in your mobile, right? So you can already see the amount of leap the technology is taking in the last few years. I'll also talk about this, about the industrial revolution in a bit, but you can already see this, right? With this example, there's a huge pace at which the technology is disrupting things. How does it affect you? Yeah? You at an individual level, if it affects, because you as a user are provided with multiple options. Yeah, you can take benefit of technology, right? When machine learning comes, or when something else comes, data science comes, You as a user get benefited because you would use that thing, right? Yeah, that's one aspect of looking at it. But when you flip the coin and when you look at it from a developer point of view, you as a developer have to learn a new technology every 6 months or every 3 months, or I don't know, for every new project, right? So this was not the case. Maybe if you take the scene 10 years ago, you could be an expert at topic one and you could stay at that level for next 10 years, just gaining expertise in that one topic and just trying to deliver based on that topic. That will not work anymore. There's a rapid pace at which the technology is growing. There are companies which are falling because they could not keep up with the technology pace. So it's very important that from one point of view you get the benefit of this space, but it's also important that from other point of view, you know that you are the guy who more or less drives this, right, as a software developer. The third aspect is the culture and mindset. We've talked about employability skills, we've talked about practical skills, we've talked about application and all that. But what is more important, as per me, is something which is done at an individual level, which is the culture that with which you look at problems, the mindset that with you try to acquire these, look at these problems and try to solve those problems. This is something which is also, I would say, one of the bigger reasons for the things that Indian graduate has to solve. There's very little lack mindset of skilling and upskilling. The majority of us would have done projects which are either borrowed from the seniors. Yeah, majority of us would have done the projects which, let's say, are taken from XYZ company, or a majority of us would have just Googled up something from online and would have presented it. Yeah, this mindset will not help you as you go ahead. You should have a continuous learning mindset, which means even if you, let's say, some of us, and I include myself also, some of us would have a mindset that, let's say, once you've passed your graduation, post-graduation and get into a job, you would acquire, let's say, so you get into a job like a mobile app developer or a web application developer. So once you've gone in, you would think that, yeah, I have acquired skills enough in my education till now, 18 years, 17 years, 20 years, 25 years. I've done a lot of education. I've done a lot of studies. I don't want to go back to that zone anymore. I'm now a working professional, which means that I'm only going to work. I'm not going to skill. I'm not going to upskill. This is not going to work. As I said, because of the technology's pace, because of the disruptions that are happening out there, it's important that you upskill, that you unlearn, you relearn, you upskill, you deskill yourself every frequently. So you should have that mindset of continuous learning till the day that you retire. Yeah. The second part is missing innovative and entrepreneur mindset. I'll take one case study of turmeric. Yeah. How many of you know about turmeric? I think that's a general information, right? Most of us know what turmeric is, right? And most of you also know that turmeric, at least at household use cases, not only is used in food, but it's also used, let's say, if you quickly want to do something on the medicinal front. Let's say you had a injury on your hand. Before you go to a doctor for the first aid, you would also apply a little bit of turmeric to it because you know that it has medicinal properties, right? Most of you know this. I would say the general knowledge about turmeric within the Indian household is somewhere about 90%. 99 out of 10 people would definitely know what the turmeric is useful for. But did you know that back in 90s, a patent was granted by US Patent Office to, of course, two Indians. The two Indians only had filed a patent about the medicinal properties of turmeric, right? So there was no patent about turmeric in India because it was a general knowledge, but it was granted as a patent in US Patent Office because they did not find any repetitive. Okay, little bit of background about patenting. So patenting is a technique where you legally put a document around your idea that no one else can steal it, and if they steal it, you can have legal action against them. Okay, and if they don't steal it, let's say they're just using your idea, then you can charge some royalty to it. Okay, there are number of patents So patent offices are there across the world, and every country has their own mechanism of doing the patenting, right? Now, you would be surprised to know that the US Patent Office had granted a patent. So a patent was rewarded for turmeric and its uses. Okay, that means that the culture of patenting or thinking something which is out of the box was there or is there also in the American general opinion. Okay, there are other factors also which we'll not talk about. I'm not trying to say that they're great and all that. No, the point that I'm trying to make is that treating your idea as something which is out of the ordinary is something which is missing in us. We will have to inculcate that. We should try and look at a problem to solve it in a new way if there is a repetition already involved. Let's go further and talk about entrepreneur mindset. Maybe when I'm talking now, it might not go really well, but right now, India is already in a stage that we have a lot of unicorns in the country. By unicorn, of course, if you're not aware, so unicorn is a startup which is treated to be which is supposed to be going to hit the $1 billion target sooner or the later. Yeah, so India in the list of countries is in the 3rd position after US and China. There are a number of at least in this year in the pandemic, I think there were about 10 to 20 unicorns that were identified from India, which means that the entrepreneur mindset that I don't want someone to give me work, I myself am capable to develop a product which can create value to the general public. This kind of mindset is improving in our country, but in general, it was missing in the past. Yeah, so this was something that was missing in the past. Now it's improving. The next and the last pillar in the problems, and then we'll go into a discussion: soft skills. I think most of us know this. When I say about soft skills, it's just not the language skills. I don't want to talk about the language skills because language skills, in my view, are not so important. Of course, you need to have command over, let's say, some languages like English and others. That's not something that I'm going to talk about, because soft skills are not just the command over your language, the command over your vocabulary of the language. Soft skills is much more than that. You need to be able to communicate your idea in a clear way that the people can understand on the other side. This is one of the soft skills. You need to have that negotiation aspect, that when you and your colleague from the work, or when you and your business partner are talking about an idea, or you or your collaboration partner are talking about the next big product, you should be in a situation to negotiate and come to common terms. This is something that is also lagging in most of the graduates. And the third and important, one of the important soft skill is also about networking. Some people are inherently equipped with skills. Some people very easily make friends, and they also maintain a good rapport. But in general, the networking skills are kind of lacking in Indian graduates. Let's skip the last part and let's have a little bit of discussion here. We can take a minute or two here. I want to hear from you. It's an open forum. Let's take 2 minutes now. So it's 4:06 till 4:08. I would like to hear from you. You have heard about the problems that I have stated here. I would like to hear from you. Number one, if you agree with these problems. Number two, if you see more such problems. Number three, if you do not agree with these problems. Anything is fine. Please unmute and we can go one by one. Let's take 2 minutes for this discussion. Who would like to go first? Who's that first hero who would like to talk? Or can I randomly pick someone from the participants? I would not wish to do that, but to have a good interaction, I think we could also pull someone. Okay, I'll wait for on a count of 3 and then I'll ask someone to talk. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so let me search. Let me randomly pick Dinesh. Dinesh Kumar. Okay. Maybe I'll pick someone else. Jasam. Over this is. Okay, that's bad. Maybe Ibrahim Rila. Okay, that's not good. Okay, I don't know, there's some problem with my participants list showing up. Okay, that's sad, but let me continue. Considering the time that we have, so we did wait for about 3 minutes. But at any point of time, if you think that you would like to raise your voice regarding the problems that you see, you would like to talk about it, we can have a discussion at the end. Okay, so let me proceed further. Now I'd like to set the context. Okay, good. I'd first start with the statement, the world's a stage. Some of you know this phrase, have heard this phrase before. This is one of the famous phrases from William Shakespeare. So I'm not going to talk about art. I'm not going to talk about English poetry now. The reason I have used this is, let me take another example. I talked about the food delivery example some time back. Let me take another example. Let me talk about, let's say 3 years ago or 4 years ago, you're sitting at your home and you got a call for an interview that you will have to attend in next 1 hour. And the place is about 10 kilometers from where you stay in a city. You have to get ready, of course. You have to pack your resume. You would have to pack your shoes. You'd have to get ready. You would have to iron your shirt and all that. And you only have 1 hour to reach the location wherever the interview is. 4 years ago, what would you do? First, you will get ready. That will take about 15 minutes. Once you're ready, you will rush out your home. You will go to the nearest bus station. You will check if there is a new bus coming in. How will you check? You will wait there for about 5 minutes. If the bus comes, well and good, you will board the bus. If the bus doesn't come, then you will look out for an auto. You will look out for an auto. You will call the auto. You will bargain with that person. You will say 300. He will say 250. Then you will say 200. You both settle on 150. You pay him 150. Then he drives you to that location. And at that point of time, when you reach there, he says, sir, you had said different location. We have reached at a different location, or it's a little extra. You'll have to pay me 30 rupees extra. Because interview is getting late, you will pay him that 30 rupees extra. He would have dropped you on the other side of the road because he will say, one way, sir, I cannot go. Then you will have to rush, jump on the bridge. You will have to take the other road, go into the building where the interview is, and then you realize you are 5 or 10 minutes late. Yeah, most likely the situation that most of us would have faced if the situation was 4 years ago. Let's rewind to today, fast forward to today. How would you do that today? Today you'll pick your shoes, you'll pick your clothes, you'll pick your resume. While you're doing this, you'll flip through your mobile, you'll look for Uber or Ola. You will set the location automatically. Your current location is detected automatically if you have enabled location access. Then you will quickly set the destination location. By the time you are ready in that 15 minutes, you would have the car or auto or a premium car or whatever it is standing in front of your house. You will walk into the car. While you're going to the destination, you will go through some of the papers that you would have to prepare yourself for the interview. So you'll use that 30 or 45 minutes to go through some of the frequently asked questions or how you have to prepare and all that. By the time you reach exactly the destination, not some other lane or some other road and all that, you are neatly dressed still. There's no, you're still properly dressed. You don't have to fresh up once again. Everything is in order and you have reached the location more or less 5-10 minutes ahead. Yeah, and you are also prepared. You have used the time as well. Yeah, you realize what is the difference, right? In the last 3 or 4 years, more or less technology has crept into our personal spaces in a way that it is affecting us more or less in most of the walks of our life. Yeah. Now, fun fact, most of these companies, Uber, let's take two of them, Uber and Ola. Ola is an Indian company, right? Ola is Indian company. It has been, it's an offshoot. The people who were earlier with Flipkart, I think, just started and they made Ola. They are now even venturing into electric vehicles. Yeah. So that's one of the proud moments for us. It's one big conglomerate which is offering services for our country for the problems that we have in our world. Yeah. So which means the most of the work that is done in Ola is done by Indian graduates, right? Then on the other side, you have Uber. Uber is a global company. Also, it has its roots in India. So for Indian customers, for the Indian app, there will be also software developers who will contribute to that app development or towards that database or cloud hosting or whatever it is. Yeah. Why did I take this example? I took this example because the world's basically a stage for you to perform, right? You by yourself can start contributing, can start, so you can be a part of a big conglomerate like Uber, and you can try giving out solutions which are effectively used across the world. You can join an Indian conglomerate. You can also give solutions to the solutions to the problems in India. Yeah, you don't have an entry barrier. Yeah, that's one of the most important. Of course, you would need to have skills. All that is fine. We will talk about that in a minute. But the world's a stage for you to perform. Yeah, you're not restricted by because of your nationality, because of your culture, because of your language or whatever it is. That's the reason I wanted to bring this point. Second, whenever you, let's say, hear a motivational speech, the one thing that most of the times is common is that they say, okay, if you have an idea, better get started right now. They'll say that there's no better time to start. Yeah, I would like to use the same thing here. So in the current world, if you have a brilliant software development idea, there has been no better time to start. Yeah, imagine 10 years ago, if you wanted to have set up a small, so you got a brilliant idea that you wanted to set up a small web application, and the web application is supposed to query the nearby buses and show the list in, let's say, in a website. Simple use case. So you would have to query the nearby buses based on location, and when a person enters the location, you would just show the list of buses which will be in that location at that point of time. Let's say this is your web application that you want to develop. 10 years ago, you needed a server which would be hosted in some kind of a data center location, which requires hundreds of billions of dollars. Secondly, to access to that server, you needed a quick and a very strong broadband. Even when you reach there, the server installation setup provisioning was so complicated and different between different vendors that it was very difficult or almost impossible to understand the server configuration itself, and it would have taken you 3 or 4 days just to understand server configuration, and then to modify you'll take another 10 days, and then to test you'll take another 5 days. Yeah, but that's not the case today. Yeah, that's just not the case today. Let's say you have a brilliant web application idea, just giving a web application idea, it can be anything else. You just have to look for what resources you can already start with. There are a number of open source communities who might have already thought about this idea, or who might have had that building blocks, that small pieces which they would have already solved for you. You just have to use them and build upon that. There are a number of options available. There are even no code frameworks available with which you don't need the coding knowledge. You will just use the framework and use the functionality to set up your application in a way that it performs as per your expectation. If you don't want to go for no code, you're a really good programmer, you want to start with programming, there are hundreds of resources available to you where you can already get started just at the application development level. Yeah, you don't need the middleware knowledge, you don't need the OS knowledge. Already some VMs might provide you already, so you just have to use them. You just have to use their APIs, and then you just have to deploy. On the deployment front also, you don't have to worry too much. You could just switch to cloud computing. Google provides you almost 1 month of free trial to use Google Cloud Services. 1 month, 30 days. 30 days, even if you reserve, let's say 3 hours per day for your web application or some kind of your trial and error application, you get 30 days full access for Google Cloud. 3 hours, 30 days, 120 hours or 90 hours. Imagine what you can do in that 90 hours with all the cloud applications available. Huh? What is important is that for you to get started. That's it. Let me talk about the last part, which is the industrial information revolution. We are more or less at the cusp of the 5th industrial revolution. First, let me talk about the first one. I think some of you or most of you already know but I would like to emphasize the change it brought, right? The first industrial revolution occurred somewhere during the 18th centuries. What it does change? What did it change at that point of time? Before this, when you needed, let's say, knowledge of how to build an automobile or how to build a bicycle, let's take a simple example. If you want to know how to build a bicycle and you are a nobody, you just don't have any knowledge. You got an idea that you want a bicycle with which you want to cycle to your home and your work, and you don't know how to build it. If you have to build a bicycle by yourself, there was absolutely no resources available. You had to go to an expert who knows how to build a bicycle. You had to sit with him for 10-15 days. You have to learn the things on the go. Once you know it, you had to try it all from the scratch. Yeah, that's not the case today. What happened in the first industrial revolution was things like printing press, things like mechanization already changed the way people were doing their manual jobs.
Hello.
Like, for example, sorry, was there some question? Okay, maybe there was mistake. I'll continue. So what exactly that the mechanization changed during the 18th century was it relieved people out of their manual work so that they don't have to sit and write books with their hands. They could use printing press. They don't have to sit and use, let's say, horses or carriage carts to commute between their houses. They could use steam engines. Yeah, you can already see the amount of benefit it gave to them, right? So from being manual, you already are using machines. This way, of course, you can see that there were different stages of industrial revolution. We are more or less between 4 and 5 now. Yeah, we have already moved into the generation of digitization. More or less everything around us is kind of digitized, and we are at the cusp of 5th industrial revolution. What does that mean for you?
No, sir.
Sorry, can you please mute yourself? Okay, thank you. I'll proceed. So for the 5th industrial revolution, we are already at a stage that more or less there will be intelligence built into more or less every other device that we use, or we are more or less dependent on devices. You have a watch, which is also a device. You have glasses. Yeah, I think some of you would have heard there are glasses which have their own intelligence. There are PCs, there are mobiles, but there are also smart things, right? You can control your light with your IoT. Yeah, you can build intelligence inside your with devices like Alexa, Google Home, and all that, right? So we are more or less at the cusp of that. with this context, let me quickly go to the next part. What is the solutions? Now, before I proceed further, we have about 40 minutes to continue further. So I would like to use the last 15 minutes for Q&A, so which leaves us with 20-25 minutes for the rest of my slides. I would like to take a small 10 seconds interruption, and I would like to summarize what is it that I have talked till now. Okay, so what I did till now, I have just tried to introduce you to the different problems that you and I as graduate used to face or have faced or are facing. And I have given you a little bit of context of where you want to be, right? In the last slide, I talked about the pace of the technology, how the software industry in special is revolutionizing things around us and things like that. Yeah. So I've already talked about the problems. I have said to you the platform. Now let's look at the solutions. How can you fill the problems? How can you solve those problems? The first step to do that is you would have to clearly know what is it that you want to be. Yeah, most of them, I think you guys will fall in the first category. I don't want to discourage you there, but I don't want to add any comments there as well. But having said that, I would also like to bring the other three categories which are generally not used. Firstly, as you already know, most of us would like to be employed, which means we work for a company, we work for someone. But very important for you is to understand that yes, employment is important. Employment is something that will drive you, but please understand that you have to map your passion to it. Yeah. Otherwise, you will end up doing something that you don't like, and then you'll keep switching jobs, you'll keep switching professions, which is not a happy situation to be in, right? So you would have to be, so for the first category, guys, who just want to be employed, please understand that you have to map your passion. You have to look for your passion, map it against your strengths, and see, and then you'll be able to do wonders at your job, right? Like Deepa said some time back, she wants to work for Google. She's already has a passion to work for a company like Google, which is more or less penetrating in all spheres of our life, right? So she's kind of clear where she wants to be. That her passion is clear. Now she just has to put the skills at use, right? So this is the first category. Second category is you just want to be self-employed, which means your work is not the primary goal for you. You have other things in your life, but you would like to work whenever you need money or whenever it is convenient for you. So there are different options there. Freelancing. Freelancing is something that was not very popular before. Why am I talking about all this? I'm talking this in the context of software career, right? So for the first guys, for employed guys, there are a number of companies which are out there, especially for software, right? So more or less software has penetrated in most of the other fields. Even in the mechanical devices, you have some kind of software. In agriculture, you have some kind of software. IT, finance, automobile, almost everywhere, you have some kind of software in, right? So for the employed guys, finding a software career is almost, it's there everywhere. Now, I would also want to stress the importance of the other three categories. So even if you're self-employed and you would like to do employment only when you want to, there are a lot of software-based self-employment opportunities which are there. You could freelance. Let's say you can just say that I want to develop a website for 1 month, and the next 1 month I want to work for my social organization. I want to work for my community, that I want to help the poor and all that. So you can also do that. 1 month you can just build your website, give a best product to your customer, and then the next month you can just focus on your social work, right? That is also a possibility. The third one is entrepreneur. Of course, if some of you would like to start your own company, you want to create value for your nation, for your family, for your close ones, you can also do that. You should have a clear view of what product you want to build, what is the problem it is trying to solve, and then you will have to work towards that. Yeah, it doesn't happen just by saying. Then you can create value out of it. There are a number of people you can take example of. right from the food industry like ID, also till the tech industry like Ola and other companies who had an idea, who had a vision, who wanted to solve a problem and have been able to create value in the world. You also have the last category, which is more or less a passionist. A passionist is basically mainly interested in the subject. A person is mainly trying to understand the intricacies of it, wants to research on a topic, file patents on a topic, get royalty for the topic. Yeah. So these guys are mainly driven by passion, only passion. Work, money, and all don't matter. So how my solution for that is 3-step: skill, network, and excellence. I call it SNE model: skills, networking, and excellence. Let's see what it is. So I bring back those 4 pillars which we had talked 3-4 slides before. Can someone remember those 4 pillars? I had talked about X, Y, A, B, C, and D 3-4 slides before. Does anyone remember what those 4 pillars were? Would someone like to state? Any hands?
Sir, employability,
Super,
practical knowledge,
super,
culture and mindset, and
super.
Soft skill.
soft skills.
Soft skill.
Super, super. Big hand to the person who said this. Sorry, I didn't get the name. I was just looking at the messages. Thank you very much for that. Let me now map them. Yeah. Oops. Yeah. Let me now map them. You said employability. So for employability, how do you improve employability? There's a small part here. Then practical skills. So how do you solve those practical skills gap? There's also a part here. Then there is culture and mindset. How do you have a culture and mindset of growth? There's also a solution here. Then is soft skills. So I've kept the soft skills the same. Let me go through one by one. Employability. So what was the problem that we said in employability? Problem was that in general, there is lack of employable skills. So here I have divided the skills itself into 3 parts. There are general skills. General skills are those skills which you would need day in, day out. They are not your specialization. They are the skills which more or less every graduate or postgraduate or every employee or an entrepreneur, whatever is your category, they would need it. Example, mail communication. Yeah. Most of the time in our daily work, daily lives, in our personal lives, we don't use mails too often, right? We use other channels to communicate with people. We use messages, we use calls, right? But when you step into a company, when you start your own business, you will have to take things formally, which means you need a formal skill about how to write mails, how to write effective mails, how to highlight the important points in the email. From my experience, a number of graduates don't have this kind of a basic skill, right? So this is something which falls in general skills. Can someone think of any other general skills? I just gave one example, mail communication. Any other general skills?
Technical communication.
Okay. Good. Any
Speaking
other?
communication skills, one to other person.
Communication skills?
How to talk
Yeah, perfect.
and explanation.
Yes, good. Sunil, any other?
Problem solving.
Problem solving. Okay, I would still keep problem solving towards speciality a little bit because it's not a general thing.
Time management.
Super. Yes, Fardin.
Lack of knowledge.
Okay, how do you think that is a skill?
If we can't, if we don't know the knowledge about the other person, so how could we talk about them?
Okay, in that sense. Okay.
Leadership skills.
Okay. Leadership, I would still say it is a speciality. It's not a general skill because not everyone needs leadership.
Team spirit.
Good. That was good interaction. I can also bring in some more general skills like resume writing. You should have very good resume. So you're highlighting your skills in a piece of paper. Imagine that you have to send your resume to an employee. Let's say in this case, Deepa wanted to send it to a Google recruiter. He will just have that few seconds to look at her resume for like 10 or 15 seconds and decide if this person is suitable for this job or not. So if Deepa wants to make an impact on that person, then she should have very good resume writing skills, right? You should have some kind of so this is once again a general skill. This doesn't have to be a specialty skill because everyone needs to have a good resume, right? Of course, there are experts who write great resumes. That's something that is not required, right? So there are such general skills. Someone also talked about communication with other person. This is something another important part. So most of you, when you get employed in your company, you will most of the times have to work with a team, right? When you work with the team, most of the times people fail because we did not have a formal setup like that before, right? In our colleges or in our schools, we more or less had a friendly relationship, even sometimes with academia, right? But that doesn't work in a professional setup. You will have different people coming from different backgrounds at different seniority levels with different competencies, all working in a single team. So if you do not have a good team player skills, it's very difficult to work. More or less in when you join a company and you are, let's say, lacking on the team player skills. For example, if you are blocked, you should approach your manager. If you are not understanding a few things, you should approach your mentor. And if mentor is occupied in a meeting, then you should give him space. And if he's a senior person, you will have to look at his calendar and then block a calendar rather than just walking to that person and saying, I have a doubt, because of course he will have other important things, right? So all those things are very important to succeed, right, in a good software career. And no one will teach you this. Most of these things you will have to learn when you get into a job. That's why it is very important to know what are these general skills, yeah, and skill up. I'll talk about them a little bit. Then you have specialty skills. Specialty skills more or less will deal with your technology most of the times, but they are not just limited to technology. For example, someone said leadership, someone said problem solving. These are a little bit of specialty skills, because problem solving might not be really required for, let's say, a marketing guy. Maybe it's not on a very high scale. For a marketing guy, he has to have very good communication. He has to have very good negotiation. He needs to understand a big picture, right? So specialty skills are those skills which keep you, which specialize you. Yeah. For example, you are a software developer in web technologies. Yeah, web technologies is your specialty. You are a software. I said that I am a software developer, embedded software developer. So I am basically, my specialty is to write embedded software, not the general IT software, right? So that's your specialty skills. Then you have niche skills. Someone would like to say what is niche skills?
Going deep in particular skills.
Yeah, almost there. So niche is something that is very specific. Niche is something that is your ownership. For example, you can say that I am very good at data structures. You can say that I am brilliant at algorithms. You can say that I am very good at UX, user experience. These are your niche. Yeah, it's okay if you just have specialty skills, but niche skills will keep you away from the competition. So if you develop niche skills, that will keep you aside, that will give you that special place among the competition, right? That will also highlight your resume. That will also highlight you from the audience. Yeah. So first step is you will have to identify those skills. Yeah, you have to identify all the 3 categories of skills, list them down. Second, practice. So this was about employability. This is more about practical application. So I said the problem is people are not able to apply. How can you solve that? You can solve that only and only with practice, practice, practice. There is no other better word. There is no shortcut either. So if you want to get into a good software company or any software company for that matter, you will have to practice what is required for that job. Without practice, you cannot crack it. Just by going through some books, just getting some theoretical knowledge, you will not be able to crack it. Even if you are able to crack it, you will face problems once you get into the company. Yeah. So it's very important to take out some time from your daily life, put consistent and practice your whatever is the skill. So you would have identified the skills here. You put practice in that. I'll also talk about where, how, and all that a little bit later. I've also highlighted varied practice. So it's very important that not only you practice on a specific topic, but you diversify that practice. For example, you can say problem solving. Problem solving is something that I want to improve. I want to look at different kinds of problems, and I would like to solve those problems. This is your varied practice. How can you do that? There are a number of platforms which help you. There are hackathon platforms. I think some of you already know that. HackerRank. There are so many platforms who can, Simply Learn is also there. There's so many MOOC and also hackathon platforms where you can try your luck. LeetCode is one. There's so many things. I have highlighted GitHub here. Some of you already know GitHub, but I would like
Version control.
Yeah. So GitHub is basically a wealth of knowledge that is available for any software developer. Of course, it has non-software stuff also inside, but it is, I would say, the world's Git repository. By the way, Microsoft has acquired GitHub a few years ago. So it's under Microsoft, but they've still kept GitHub as an open platform, which means you from your home can just need your laptop and you can create a GitHub account and keep pushing your code into the code which is much mature and available. Yeah. I was reading an article about the supply chain for software some time ago. Basically, that means that how the software supply chain has been evolving. Supply chain is a term which is used to indicate the life cycle of any entity, right? So software supply chain means where it starts, how it reaches the customer. So I was reading an article about that, and interestingly, there was a part which was highlighting the use of open source software. I'll talk about that in 1 or 2 minutes. So open source software is finding its way into our commercial software much and much more. I will take an example on so and talk about that in 1 minute. Most important thing in practice is to be hands-on. Just by reading the books, I re-emphasize this point, reiterate this point. Just by reading some books, you will not get it. You will have to get your hands dirty. You will have to try different things. Only then you get mastery over it. Then is for mindset and culture, there's something called as growth mindset. How many of you have heard about this term, growth mindset?
Always trying to learn something new.
Good. Any other views?
And get out of our comfort zone and improving our skills.
Good. There's this term was coined by a lady, forgetting her name, but this has found more or less way into most of the innovative companies out there. I'll talk about this in maybe in 1 or 2 slides. Then the soft skills. So how can you improve your soft skills? One thing that I would like to bring attention is to have a big picture. So when you are thrown a problem statement, think of it in a big picture point of view. think of it, how is it going to solve, who is the end user, how is it going to solve the problem of the end user. So if you're asked, so let me take an example. You would have to write 3 lines of code which will deliver a software product to the production. This is one way of telling you the problem statement. The other way of doing it is you are writing 3 lines of code in a way that a web application is going to be deployed in Amazon Web Services, and it is going to be available on a production worthy user app. Same thing. I've just kept it in a different way. So in the second answer that I gave, that is more or less talking about where that 3 lines of code is going to be and what is its potential impact to the person who's using it, right? So that is about having a big picture about what your contribution is. If you get the big picture, it's very easy to understand how your contribution helps or affects the end user. If you just focus on that 3 lines of code without having the big picture, it's quite possible that you'll miss out a few things, and those 3 lines of code will be not, could turn out buggy as well. Okay. Yeah. So now let me go a little bit detailed about all these points. Yeah. First, I'll start with the 3 topics that I said, the skills, right? Now, basically skills are your ability to do something well, right? It's a particular ability or a type of ability that you specialize in. What you have to understand is the skills are your marketable entities. You, in your professional software career, would be identified based on your skills. If you're a fresher, more or less people treat you as a person with no skills, or maybe only the general skills. Then the specialization comes in with experience. But you can already change that. During your graduation or your post-graduation or your free time, you can already invest your time on the skills that you would like to acquire. For instance, Deepa said that she wants to be in Google. She can already try and look at some of the skills which are usable or which are marketable in Google. Google is more or less there in most of the software industries, right? So she can maybe focus on that one aspect. For example, data science. She can say that I want to improve myself on the data science. You don't have to be very broad as well. So you don't have to be an expert at data science. You would need time for that, and you would need real world problems for that. You don't have to go to that level, but at least you can start in that direction. You can just, let's say, start saying that I want to just structure the data. I want to understand how the data structuring happens. What are the different forms of data that I get? What are the problem statements with data structuring? How can I visualize those data? Small things. Yeah. But it's very important to invest on your skills. You have to invest on your skills. When I say invest, it is spending time. It is spending, if required, money. It is spending your effort. Yeah. Then you hone them. How do you hone them? You hone them by putting effort to it, putting practice to it. Yeah. Practicing the same things multiple times, practicing new things multiple times. Yeah. This will give you a skill level to that same thing. So when you already apply for a job as a fresher, you would have already something to show. Yeah. You would have said that, yeah, for data science, I am already well versed in the first part. Yeah. Believe me, if I am a recruiter who's looking at that resume, which already talks about what you have done in your past time, I would throw away all the other resumes and just take your resume, and would love to have a discussion with you to understand what you've done. Yeah. So it already differentiates you from the others. Yeah. When you invest your time on the skills and you practice them, that will create your persona. Okay. So why do you need them? I already said they enable you, they establish you, and they bring excellence to you. Okay. So let me quickly go through, at the view of time, I'll quickly go through this slide because it's very important. As I said, how do you pick the skills? So quickly, I'll go to the last the slide that we were discussing. GitHub, hackathon, growth mindset. Okay, I'll talk about growth mindsets in 1 minute, but let me already start with GitHub and hackathons. Let me take an example. So you are a software developer who would like to specialize on web applications. and front end, let's say, not back end or database or infrastructure, DevOps or whatever. You would like to specialize on front end. This is the thing that you would like to do. You pick all the skills that you require. So what are the different skills that you require on the front end? So you would need to have knowledge about a front end language. You can start, let's say, with JavaScript or Angular or React, anything that you feel comfortable. You have a number of courses which are available to understand that language. So you will have to pick the skills. That's the first step. Then you will have to map them your passion and strengths. This is where you validate if this is the right direction for you. Yeah. For instance, you are confused between backend and front end. You can try and understand by going through about both of them. So what does backend involve? What does front end involve? You would have learned your fundamentals already in your graduation or post graduation, right? So you would have got solid fundamentals from your academia. They would have taught you a number of things. Yeah. But now those things have to be applied. Now, before application, you can already map your strengths. Yeah, maybe I'm very good with SQL. Maybe I'm very good with database. So I don't want to go towards front end, or I don't want to go towards back end. Let me focus on databases. So there you can try and understand what are the different skills that I need to call myself a database management administrator or whatever it is. Yeah. So you do this first and second step. Then you create a plan for yourself. You will have to set some deadlines and you will have to create a plan saying that in 1 month, I would like to learn what are the different types of databases out there and which of them are used in the companies that I want to apply for. So I want to apply, let's say, for Google, Microsoft, and Facebook. For these 3 companies, what are the different database technologies that they want to use? And how can I create a plan which will put me in the edge for that database related jobs? Yeah, this plan you will have to create it individually. Of course, this is the place where when you're doing this 1, 2, 3 steps, you would need support. And this is where you will have to network. Now I'll come back to that network in 1 minute, but these 3 steps you will have to perform. Now, wherever you see that there's a gap, yeah, so you don't understand database, you don't understand the modern database systems, you don't understand NoSQL, SQL, yeah, that's where you have a number of MOOCs, yeah, massive open online courses. Yeah, you have a number of them. There are a number of platforms. There are free platforms. There are also paid platforms. Most of these paid platforms are also very cheap. For instance, you can have 1 year LinkedIn subscription for about 12K. You can have 1 year Udemy subscription for about like 10K or something like that. Coursera gives courses from 1200. Yeah. So money, I think, is not a big concern there. So you can learn from MOOCs. Then you have a number of coding practice platforms as well. There are a number of platforms like LeetCode. There are HackerRank. There are a number of platforms where you can actually solve the problems. I also want to bring to your attention something about Dojo. So basically, Dojo is a term which was used in the military mainly to showcase that it's a class kind of environment. But it has kind of made its way into the contemporary world for almost everything that relates to learning. So if you want to have a dojo, basically what it does is you can set up or you can join an existing dojo where there will be people with similar interests, for example, database or front end or back end, who will be trying to solve a problem. So you can form a community and try and commonly solve problems. This will already get you clear with some of the questions that you have, right? This is one such example. There are many such options which right now are out of this context of this presentation, but there are such options. So to summarize, you have to pick your niche. You have to learn the tips of the trade. What do I mean by learning the tips of the trade? Until and unless you practice, you will not know how modern software development is being done in big companies. Yeah, of course, you will not know until you get inside, but by already doing some practice and doing some research, you would have already got this to an extent. You don't have to be an expert. When you're giving an interview, they don't expect you to be an expert, right? So they expect you that you will be able to fit to a problem statement. Then you can learn from there. Yeah, that's very important. So then you practice. I can't emphasize the importance of practice more. It's very important that you spend time more and more on practice on the skill that you have picked. And then it's very important to take time out. Don't do it like I will do it for 2 weeks, then I'm bored, let me pick another skill. Then 3 weeks later, no, the skill seems to be very difficult for me, let me pick another skill. This kind of attitude will not get you anywhere. So you'll have to first do good background on picking the right skill and spend effort on it consistently. Give it that 1 month or 2 months or 3 months, whatever it is. Sunil has raised his hand. Yes, Sunil, please go ahead with the question. Sunil? Okay, let me proceed. I wanted to bring the importance of open source software. How many of you know about open source software, or what is open source software?
Example, Angular, React, Linux.
Super. Someone said Linux. Great. Okay, let me view of time. I'll tell you what is open source software and why I wanted to bring the importance of it. GitHub is one of the repositories which is very famous for hosting open source software. Basically, open source software is free and available. Okay, I'll repeat, it is free and available for everyone. 10 years before, if you had to develop a server based web application which, let's say, works on service oriented architecture, let's say this was your problem statement. If you go to IBM, they used to solve this problem with their own custom tools. If you go to, let's say, Google, let's not take Google as an example because I think they're more or less very good with open source software. Let's say you go to Oracle, they used to solve this problem in their own custom way. Yeah, but the same thing has now been changed quite drastically. The way people are using open source software, right from companies like Google and Microsoft, there is more percolation of open source software in their systems, right? For example, you from your home can sit and write an Android app, right? Android source code, Android APIs are available to you, right? So that's more of an API. But someone took an example of Linux, superb example. So most of the Linux code is just available openly there. You can take the Linux code, you can write your own variant where you are removing some parts of an OS, and you can write a lightweight Linux OS, and you can publish it into GitHub. People can also start using it, right? That's the power of open source software. It's more like democratizing your software contributions. I'll take another example. The WhatsApp that you're using, or how many of you know about a platform called Signal? Signal is something which has gone popular after that WhatsApp privacy fiasco. Signal is completely based on open source framework called Elements. Yeah, Elements is the software code for Elements is completely available online. Elements is thereby based on Matrix. Matrix software code is also available completely in open. There are a number of such communities which have deployed there, which have made the code open, free, and available. So that's a very good starting point for you if you would like to hone some skills. And the only downside of open source software is it might not be production worthy. Means there could be some bugs. So you'll have to be very careful in picking the right version. Always pick the stable version. Yeah, when you pick the stable version, then you know that it is going to work. It will not break your systems. But generally, you'll get very good support from the community across the OSs. I'll skip the SDLC Agile and all that. One important thing I wanted to raise, please, I will also drop this link in the chat. There is a Hacktoberfest, which is hosted by GitHub. Please go through this link, try and understand, see if you can already contribute there. In the view of time, I'll quickly go through the second and last but one slide very quickly. Just wanted to highlight a little few things on the networking. On the networking front, so at first part, you would have gained the skills. You know what skills you require. you know how to skill up. That itself is not going to be enough. So you have the skills, you have maybe skilled up, you also need a network. You need to be open and you need to build a network. Students have an excellent opportunity because you already are in a big network. You have about 10-20 friends, and if you combine all the departments, you have about 100-200 friends. Yeah, that's already a very good network. Each person has its own offerings, right? So your network can help you there. So it should be a mutually beneficial network. So you form a group, and you together as a group can work on a software problem that you would like to solve, right? And at any point of time, you can get back to your academia, or you can get back to industry people like me. So this is always possible. Apply for internships. This is also something that you get from the network. Yeah, when you apply for internships, it's quite possible that some of these companies would like to hire you looking at your skills, and you will really get the practical application knowledge, right? You don't have to try all this on your own. I will, looking at the time, I'll quickly just go through the growth mindset and end my talk. I was not able to cover everything, but yeah, let's use this time. So growth mindset was coined by this lady, Miss Carol S. Dweck. It's here. You can also Google her. She's basically a PhD. Basically, growth mindset, there's a nice chart which differentiates growth mindset with a fixed mindset. Growth mindset is against the fixed mindset. With fixed mindset, you treat challenges. Let me zoom this so that you're able to see it. I don't know how to zoom it. Zoom should be okay. No, not sure. Okay, I'm not sure if you can see it, but let me go through this. So in fixed mindset, you treat challenges as barriers, but in growth mindset, you treat challenges as opportunities. Yeah, in fixed mindset, you look at obstacles everywhere, but in growth mindset, you look at enablers everywhere. So it's just about having that right mindset, right? In fixed mindset, you always have a thinking that your potential is always limited. You think that, no, I was born with this and I can only do this. I cannot go beyond this. It's not possible from my side. That is fixed mindset. But in growth mindset, you say that with continuous learning, I can go to any level that I would like to. Yeah, that's basically the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. You can Google this. You will get nice papers about this growth mindset. So I just wanted to end this talk because we are right at time, 5 o'clock. With this, I've not covered a few things, but I think they are okay. I think we can skip them. So I would like to end my talk at this point. We can use another 5 minutes to take 5 or 10 minutes to take some questions. I will stop sharing and the forum is open for questions.
I request participants to kindly ask some questions.
Guys, you can ask me any silly question as well. You don't have to be, you don't have to worry that maybe my question is not good. Basically, that's fixed mindset, right? So even
Hello,
if you
sir.
have a,
Am I audible?
yeah, go ahead, Vakas.
Actually, I want to become a full stack developer. Sir.
Okay,
sir. I'm 50% complete in front end. I want to move to back end so that I. Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah, now you're audible.
Actually, my voice is lagging. I can't hear you properly, sir.
Okay, so I could get your question till one level. You said that you want to be a full stack developer. You have done 50% on front end and back end. That's where I lost it.
Yeah, should I complete my front end to till 100% or should I move to back end itself, sir?
Okay, I will ask this question back to you. What do you think before I answer?
I will completely front end and
I would also recommend that. When you say 50%, there's basically no way that you can measure your skill level, okay? Unless and until you're able to solve like most of the problems of front end. So I would leave the decision to you. If you are quite confident about the front end, you are able to dodge the questions and problems, then I would say then you can move to back end.
I am quite good in front end, sir. Whenever I face problems, I just Google stuff and I will face myself so that I can good in front end. So can I go to back end?
My suggestion is, because you said yourself 50%, I would still say spend some more time on front end.
Yeah.
Then you can start looking at back end. Okay, any other questions? But having said that, I am not of a very good opinion of this so-called full stack. That's just my personal opinion. Industry also has its own opinions on it. I think specializations add more value than generalizations. That's my personal view. So if you're a very good full stack developer, you can easily get into a big company like Google, Facebook, Microsoft.
All the
They'll not
companies
assign-
were expecting the full stack developer only, sir. I just attend few interviews.
Okay.
What they're expecting is they're asking for full stack developer, not asking for specialized in front end or back end. They're asking for full stack developer.
Okay, I would not agree with that. Yes, maybe on the job portals, that's how it is, but it's kind of an overrated term. So I can give you hundreds of job openings which require specialization. They want a good full front-end developer. They want to enhance on their front-end skills. Yeah, that's just my view. We can also have an offline talk. Okay, someone else has raised a question. More questions?
Hello.
Yes, please go ahead, Shabana.
Yes. Good evening, sir. Thank you for the wonderful session, sir. So
Thank you.
my question is regarding internship, sir. I'm a third year student, starting in the fifth semester. But due to the lockdown, we didn't have a good academia in the last 1.5 years. And so I was not able to attend any of the important core subjects regarding my computer science engineering, sir, like data structures and all. So we had that through only online teachings and exams were all online. So the basic knowledge is there, but the deep knowledge that we require when we see a problem and how should we apply our academia to there, so that is not there. And some of the teachers and colleagues are suggesting to start our internship in this term itself. So what do you suggest, sir? Should I focus on strengthening my basic knowledge, or should I start with the internship? Like the
Yeah,
Yes,
please
yes.
go ahead. Please go ahead, please.
like there are paid internships also, and some of the internships like we can go to internshala and other there are, right, sir? Can we apply there, or can we start with like strengthening my basic concept first?
I am of an opinion that a person learns much faster if he or she applies the skills. That's my personal opinion, and that I have seen also benefits of this in multiple of my juniors. Yeah. So at any point of time, if you get an opportunity of good internship, when I say good internship, please look at the job description of that internship. What is it that you have to do? If it is vague, then they are also not clear of what they want from you. Then it's most likely it might not add value. Yeah. But if it's a good job description, it's specific, then at any point of time, I would recommend to go with internship, because that's where your learning speed is much faster.
And one more thing, sir, if we are applying for internship, should it be online or offline? Like, which do you think gives you more benefit?
Okay.
If you're a student.
Yeah, this answer is a little bit person specific. For
Okay,
me, it doesn't matter. That's just my personal opinion. Personal in the sense, not an opinion that is applied to all the others. But in my opinion, for me, online and offline both work. But in most of the cases, by the way, humans learn things in different ways. Some people just learn by looking at the book. Yeah. So there are different ways people learn. So most of them prefer an offline internship, but that's once again a personal preference. Yeah. So if you get an offline internship, that would be best, because any day face-to-face interactions are best. You also get to interact with people. Some people open up when you are offline rather than on call. So at any point of time, face-to-face interactions are best. If you get an opportunity, grab that. But if it's not there, please don't only look for offline. If you get an online and if it's good also, I think you can go ahead.
yes, sir. That helped me so much, sir. Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Any other questions? Participants? No questions, I think, sir.
Yes, it's nervous.
Thank you, Samir.
Samir, just a minute. If no student has any question. Hi, Samir.
Hi.
I hope you remember me. This is Srikar from Arogya Mata.
Hey, Srikar. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious about this session and I just joined.
Cool.
So I just wanted to ask, I just wanted to tell students about one particular thing which was troubling me a lot when I was after my engineering and all. What is your opinion on these mass coaching centers that, mass institutes where they'll just pull in, hundreds of students, who are who have been just graduated from their engineering, and then train them on some sort of software, and then just give wrong this is just my thought about it. Just give wrong perceptions about how the industry works, and how I just want you to tell everyone how whether that will be a good thing or a bad thing. Yeah, I just wanted your opinion on that.
Yeah. So I'll just tell my personal opinion about this. I don't think it is very good. I also echo the same statements as you, but that's just my personal opinion. That people might have got value out of this as well. There might be people, but I don't have a very good opinion of it. Having said that, 90 to 95% of the times, most of these institutes have a fixed agenda, meaning, let's say now full stack development was is getting popularity in the market. So they'll take some keywords, they'll put them in there, and they'll say, okay, we will train you to be a full stack developer in 1 month at 20,000 per person. That's what I have seen most of the times. Yeah, that's just my personal opinion. Maybe there are good institutes who treat the skills as a value and teach them. I have just seen one institute in Bangalore. Not going to name because that will become a marketing thing. So I have seen only just one institute where a few students, not just one or two, few students were able to come out of the institute. That was also an institute. It was mainly for embedded, and they were also able to give value. That was the only institute I saw where after their graduation, they went through this, they paid where they were crubbed into one class or something, and they were able to get value. Yeah, at least 50-60% of them. I'm not sure if it was 100 there, but all of the others, I've just seen that it's a waste of money and effort. It's a gullible thing, because parents also fall for that trap. They only look at the money and they say, okay, money and skills, they will come. Most of these things will come when you practice. And if they don't give you a practice platform, and they don't give you industry relevant problems, you will not learn. At the end of that 30 days, you will just have something on the certificate. Nothing will help you when you join a company. That's my view of this.
Yeah, thanks, Samir. Even I was under, I mean, even I'm under the same impression. I just want you to explain this, use this platform to point out that particular, thing.
Thanks, Rika.
Yeah, I'll catch up with you offline.
Yeah, sure. Just for the other speaker is my school mate.
So,
learning from other, I'm audible, sir?
Yeah, please go ahead.
So learning from Udemy, like that stuff, it's okay or not, sir?
Yeah, it's very good, I would say. But once again, as I said, learning doesn't stop at just one point of time. Udemy and other such MOOCs have a very good option where you can connect with the course creator, right? There are other things also like Coursera, there's EDX, there is Educative, there is Udacity. MIT also has its own online MOOC portal, LinkedIn Learning. So all these are very good platforms. Please use them as much as possible because they have world-class content, right? This is a content which is being used across India, worldwide. So they have very good content, but you will have to be specific. You need to know what you want to learn and you need to do good research, find that particular course, look at its reputation, look at its reviews, look at the course agenda. If it is covering all the parts that you need, then decide and subscribe.
Any other questions?
so as of there are no questions, so we can just move to the end of the session. So, ma'am, can we just have a vote of thanks from Lavanya?
Right, sir. Thank you, Mr. Shamir. Your session was very useful for our students and other participants also. Your session was very informative, and what all the various skills are there and how to develop themselves for preparing in their future placement and all. Really, it was very useful. And moreover, very thank you to spending your valuable time with us today. Thank you, Shamir, Mr. Shamir. Thank you so much.
Yes. Yeah, Lavanya, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for giving us a lot of inputs and ideas on how to start a software career. I'm sure our participants have greatly benefited by your ideas. Thank you so much, sir. Participants, you will get your certificates link in the chat box. Please. If welcoming is a kind gesture.
Just one last point. Thank
Yes,
you very
sir,
much
sure,
also for giving me this opportunity, Revati ma'am, Afzal bhai. Thank you very much. And if any point of time, if you would like to get in touch with me, you can reach me on LinkedIn. You can search. I can also drop the link to my window, or you can also message Afzal bhai. I can provide you my mobile number via Afzal. Thank you.
We are expecting your sessions in future also, sir.
Sure. I would be willing to do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Lavanya, please go ahead with the vote of thanks.
Yes, sir. If welcoming is a kind gesture, thanking is the kindest gesture. I take this opportunity to perform the kindest gesture of proposing the vote of thanks. I thank the Almighty for blessing us to conduct this webinar successfully. I place my sincere thanks to our management for encouraging us to conduct a lot of programs for the development of our students. I thank our resource person, Mr. Mohammed Sami, for enlightening and encouraging us with his vivid knowledge. The webinar was very helpful to us. We were able to learn a lot of nuances, feeling highly motivated to start our career. Once again, thank you very much, sir. In spite of your very busy schedule, you have given us your valuable time for our growth. I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to Director Dr. Revati ma'am, our Head of Department Dr. Usha ma'am, for this support and guidance. I also place my sincere thanks to all the faculty members and organizing team. Last but not least, I would be failing if I didn't thank the participants. Your cooperation has made the webinar very successful. I also place my gratitude to all those who have directly and indirectly contributed to the webinar on how to start your software career in strong terms, organized by your institution. Thank you all and have a great weekend and stay safe. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, Samir bhai, thank you so much. So we'll end the session.
Have a nice day, guys.
Okay.
A great weekend. Bye bye.
Bye.